you know how to show love to your child? Let's see. Discover how this simple shift will benefit your bond like nothing else. What if your child isn't feeling love when you're doing all you can to connect and love them? Learn about their love languages to speak to them in the way that is most impactful to them.
Welcome to the I Am Education podcast, where we explore transformative ideas for parents, educators, and anyone passionate about shaping the future of learning and humanity. Join us as we dive into the latest insights, practical tools, and inspiring conversations that empower both children and adults to thrive. Let's unlock the potential of education together. I am education for the love of learning.
Hello, my name is Jason Alexander, and I'm here to talk all about the world of early childhood education. Now, today we're going to talk about love. And no, not in the general sense. We're actually going to talk about love languages and how they impact your ability to connect and respond to your child. But before we go any further, I need to put this disclaimer out. No, this is not a Valentine's Day special. This is not a couples podcast. We are focusing on the tiniest humans of our lives, our children. So, if you want to know how to speak to your child's heart, this is the episode for you. We're going to explore the 5 love languages and discover how understanding them will change the relationship you have with your child. Let's go over what love languages are. You may have heard of them. These are the inner talkings of your heart. They are the way we communicate and how we receive and give love. Dr. Gary Chapman, back in the 1990s, a long time ago, came up with the theory of love languages in his work as a marriage counselor. And he initially created it to help couples improve their relationships by understanding the different ways people express and receive love. But now it has been adapted to suit all sorts of relationships, co-workers, friends, and like today's podcast is going to show, children. For children, they are working on their ability to communicate. They often don't really understand how they feel, and even more so, don't really know how to express it. And there are even some adults that can't do the same. So being able to speak a hidden language of a child, hands up if that would be beneficial for you. This is what understanding love languages gives you. It gives you the ability to read through behaviors and support them in the way that they feel the most seen, heard, loved, and understood. Now, the 5 love languages, they are words of affirmation. This is the process of saying nice things, of hearing nice things. It's all about the ability to talk and receive that love, that gratitude from others. Oh, you did such a fantastic job making your bed this morning. I can see how hard you've been trying with that. For a child, words of affirmation, that is speaking to them. Physical touch. Look at you've made your bed. I know something we can do. Come here. Then you pick them up and body slam them on that bed and then jump on them and roll around on the bed with them, providing that physical touch. And then when you get up, oh, the bed needs to get made again. Whoops. But for that child, you're speaking to their inner heart through physical touch. Quality time. Oh, we're just going on a bed making scheme here, so just stay with me. Oh, look, you made your bed. Now let's go sit down in bed and read a book together. For that child, speaking to their heart. Acts of service. I can see you're having trouble making your bed. Let me help you. For that child, acts of service. See the common theme here? If you know what your child needs in terms of their love language, you can speak it to them. And finally, receiving gifts. Oh, you couldn't make your bed? Yeah, you don't have a blanket anymore. But wait, ta-da, here's a new blanket. Receiving gifts. Yes! So in all of these situations, just the mundane task of making a bed, we were able to speak to a child's words of affirmation, their physical touch, their acts of service, quality time, and receiving gifts. The language that they speak, we are able to speak it to them through a mundane task such as making your bed. And so, how do you know what love language your child speaks? You can't exactly ask them. Now, for someone that has an astute eye and has the ability to sit, watch, analyze, figure out all the nuances of their child's behavior, then you can simply observe them and you'll see the things that light them up. You'll provide them different stimulus and you'll see what makes them, oh, yes, and what makes them, whatever. But let's be honest, most of us don't have the time for that. So you're in luck. With I Am Education, we do actually have a very quick guide. I believe it's 4 questions per love language, which, now look, it's not rocket science, but it's going to give you a pretty good idea of where to start exploring love languages with your child. And so if that's something you're after, we have that guide available free to you. Now, when we now know about our child's love language, yes, we can speak it to them because we're able to understand what sets them up to win. But I also know how overwhelming it can be to simply dive into love languages and be expected to be able to speak all of them. Words of affirmation. You done good today. So sometimes, particularly for words of affirmation, it's less about the words and it's more about the emotion. It's more about the feeling that you put behind it. So let's use the amazing grammar of you done good today. You done good today? That sounds like a question. So for a child that speaks words of affirmation, that is a very quick road to, did I actually do good? I don't know. So then if we flip it, you done good today. Just by swapping that energy and just by bringing that energy up, a child receives that. I did do good today. Fantastic. I'm feeling good. And so supporting your child who speaks different love language, this is very important. So here's a couple of quick tips that I utilize with my own children and with children that I have cared for over the almost 2 decades of being in this world. Words of affirmation. There are 2 that I'm going to speak into. The first one is note writing. Writing a note. Have a fantastic day. If you know a child has got a big test coming up or something that they're feeling a little bit anxious about, you got this. And then, of course, with a smiley face and a love heart. Love, Dad. For a child that speaks in the love language of words of affirmation, that is huge for them. That is going to set them up to be able to take on the world in their most confident self. Putting notes on the fridge. Post-it notes are amazing. Try this. If you have a child that can read, just start writing post-it notes everywhere and hide them in random places in their house. Open up the sock drawer. Oh, hey, I'm here. Have a fantastic day. Close it up. Open up the fridge. What can you say in there? Let's talk about, I've made you a nutritious meal. Hope you enjoy it. Words of affirmation with a hint of acts of service tied in there as well. So if you have a child that speaks 2 languages, that's perfect. And yes, this works for children, but ultimately it works for humans. Children, they're just little humans. Adults, we're just bigger humans. We need the same things. It doesn't matter what age you are, 4, 14, 24, love, support, connection, understanding. This is what we're wanting. So use these words of affirmation, use notes all throughout your house. Just start leaving post-it notes everywhere. And so for your child that can't read, what's the saying? A picture speaks 1,000 words. Draw them a picture. If their favorite animal is a duck, do your best to draw a duck and then give him love heart eyes. I don't know. Whatever is going to work for you, for that child to understand that you were thinking of them, that will build up that sense of feeling seen and heard and understood. And now another one that I love to do for my child, that is a words of affirmation child, is take a, let's go with a stuffed duck. We're rocking with this today. We've got a stuffed duck and it's their duck. I'm actually going to speak into that duck and tell it a secret. Oh my goodness, I can't believe how tidy child's name room is. Oh, did you see them tidy it? Wow. They're being so respectful of their space. I can't believe it. And so the reason we can do it like this is, for a lot of humans, the words we hear, we're very cautious of them. We don't always believe that they're true. We believe that there's a hidden underlying message, and we're constantly analyzing things. Humans are meaning makers. But if a child overhears, or if we overhear someone praising us, of saying positive things, there's this thing that our mind does where we're more likely to take it on board. So for that child listening to me talking to a stuffed duck and saying how amazing their room looks and how responsible they're being and how much that they must respect their space and looking after these things, that child, yep, I did all those things. So that's for our words of affirmation child. Now moving on to physical touch. I've got a story later on that I'm going to share with you about my middle daughter and her adventure into physical touch. But I touched on it briefly earlier. Rough and tumble play. Now I know there's the common misconception that we have to be gentle with our girls and we have to be rough with our boys. Guess what? Humans are humans. A little girl could love getting some rough and tumble time in with their mum or their dad as much as a little boy does. So before bed, let's get into that proprioception. Let's get children into their bodies. Let's have them going to bed feeling good about themselves with a bit of rough and tumble. It's not going to hype them up. I mean, it might initially because it's a novelty, but once you turn it into a routine, it just becomes something that a child goes to bed, goes to sleep, feeling good about themselves. They feel seen, they feel heard, they feel loved, they feel understood. And as we all would have probably experienced, when this thing up here is going a mile a minute at nighttime, sleep is really tricky. And we know how important sleep is for children. So let's set children up to win by allowing them to feel good before they go to bed. So rough and tumble play. I love it. It's fantastic. It's so much fun. But also, don't discredit the gentler forms of physical touch. When your child wakes in the morning and they sneak into your room thinking that you don't hear them, but you hear every single thing. They're not as quiet as what they think they are. And these not so sneaky ninjas climb into your bed and they cuddle up. What are they telling you? That physical touch is something that they cherish and they want to experience with you. So it doesn't need to be rough and tumble. It doesn't need to be throwing a child into a pool. It doesn't need to be backflips and cartwheels. Sometimes a gentler touch will have the same impact on a child who is seeking and craving physical touch. Quality time. Pretty self-explanatory, right? A simple way to bring quality time in, put the phone away. I know. I get myself caught up in it all the time. I'm not going to say I'm perfect, that I always manage to put my phone away, but it's a conscious thing that I try to do. That when I know that I'm spending time with my child, my eldest, she loves card games. She loves playing strategy games. Definitely came from my side of the family. And when we're playing these games, I do my best to make sure phone is put away. So I can actually focus on the game, because if I don't focus, she will win. And I need to make sure that I keep my mantle of being the number one strategy card game player in the house. But also, I need to look at the deeper connection of this activity. It's connection. It's speaking her love language. For her, quality time is huge. So giving her one-on-one time, that's a thing that's going to speak to her. It's going to make her heart sing. And so one thing that we've started doing at our house is each month we've got a calendar up and we write on there, daddy, daughter, date. And we put them on there. She's almost 10, so she's learning how calendars work and she's learning how time works. And we set these times in a month in advance so she knows that I might not be able to give her quality time all the time because of the busyness of life, but we've booked in this special time. That's our date. And then mum does the same, and we do it for each of the children. We book it in so they know, yes, this Sunday I get time with dad. And then what we're going to do on that time, who knows? My last daddy-daughter date was me creating invitations with her as we sat and waited for our dinner to cook at a restaurant. I brought the laptop and we were using Canva to make invitations for her upcoming birthday party. It's that quality time. We were focusing on something and we were connecting. We were talking. She was teasing me. It was amazing. But we were focusing on quality time and speaking her love language and acts of service. This one's a tricky one because as adults, we want our children to be independent. We don't want them to rely on others. We don't want them to be seen as quote unquote lazy. But for a child that speaks acts of service as their primary love language, doing things with someone else or having someone do something for them, that is one of the most amazing feelings that they can experience. And so with this child, what I would suggest is, yes, they love to receive acts of service, but they also love to speak it. Give them opportunities to do things for others, to support them. If you're having difficulty with a task, get them to come do it with you. Acts of service, quality time. You can interplay all these different love languages depending on what dominant and secondary language your child speaks. So the child that speaks acts of service as their primary and then words of affirmation as their secondary, pull them in together. Get them to help you make lunch and then speak about how the choices they're making in regards to the food they're selecting to make on the salad sandwich. You can link all these things in. And so acts of service, actually, here's one. My eldest, at the age of 7, this realization came in, and there was 2 things that helped kick it off. The first was I was walking her into school, and normally she holds my hand. This one week actually, she didn't want to hold my hand anymore. And as dad, I was not ready for that. That hit me. I was just like, what did I do wrong? Why don't you want to hold my hand anymore? And I had to really think about that and go, okay, it's fine. She's getting older. She's going to be more independent. That's okay. You got this. And then during that same week, often our bedtime schedule looks like we put the youngest, at this time it was just the 2 of them, we put the youngest to sleep, read her a story, and then while we're doing that, my eldest is reading her own books in her room, and then we go in there and say goodnight to her, books away, everything like that. And normally the one thing she'll ask is, can you tuck me in? And so for her, it's as simple as just whoosh, blanket goes up, goes down, fantastic. Pat on the head, love you, good night, mwah, all the stuff. And it was during this week that I'd had a really long day at work. I was just ready to put the girls to bed and just go chill, get into a bit of doom scrolling myself and just nothingness for a period of time. And so as I was walking out of the room, I got a, Dad, can you tuck me in? And my first initial reaction was, I don't want to. Do it yourself. But then the other little part of the brain spoke to me and said, hey, she's already not holding your hand when you go into school. Are you prepared for this to be the last time that she asks you to tuck her in? And that immediately flicked a switch and I went, I'm coming to tuck you in. Because I understand that acts of service is one of her primary love languages. And so speaking that with her, it's a 30-second job, sometimes even less, if I don't get caught up in the blanket as I flick it. But me performing that act with her, it allows me to speak her love language. And at the end of the day, it took 30 more seconds out of my day, but she went to bed feeling good, feeling seen, heard, loved, and understood. And then the following week, we're back to holding my hand as we walked in. So I'm good. Now, receiving gifts. That is the next love language we're going to talk about. And I'm first of all going to premise that receiving gifts does not mean it needs to be this lavish gift every single time. It can be as simple as going for a walk, picking up a flower off the ground, and handing it to a child. If your child speaks receiving gifts as a love language, no, they are not spoiled. No, you're not going to create a spoiled, self-entitled child. I mean, you could, but ultimately, the act of receiving gifts as a love language means that this child remembers everything that happens. They will tell you exactly what they were wearing, what you were wearing, what the weather was like. They'll tell you exactly how they felt when they received this gift. They will tell you exactly what you said about it. They'll tell you exactly what wrapper was over the gift. Receiving gifts for them is an entire experience. It's not just a single act. So, like I said, it doesn't have to be expensive. If you go to a beach, one thing that I always try to do if ever I go to a beach without my family is I always try to find a seashell for them. Because for that child, you were thinking of me. They go back. Then you go back to them and you give them that seashell. It's a gift for me. It's thoughtful. But ultimately, that child understands that you were thinking of them in that moment. So those are some ways that you can cater to your child's love language and you can connect with them. But we're not all perfect parents. We're not all perfect educators. And sometimes, depending on our child's love language, there are some actions we can do that will actually really hurt that child. So words of affirmation, you can probably guess what it is. But if you speak words of a hurtful nature, that child that's love language is words of affirmation, those hurtful words, they cut deep. They take everything that comes to them very, very deeply. And that is going to help them create a more negative viewpoint of themselves. And that's not what we want. So if you do have a words of affirmation child, really look at the words you use, because the two words I am are extremely powerful depending on what you put after that. And so if a child is receiving words of hurtful nature, that I am curious can quickly turn into I am dumb. I don't know anything. So take note of the words you use for your words of affirmation child. Now, your physical touch child, they understand that physical touch gives them an outlet. It gives them a sense of love and support and understanding. They feel seen, they feel heard. You hurt with touch, and that child no longer knows what to expect from touch. These children will grow up not understanding whether touch is something to be celebrated or something to be avoided, but their inner workings of their heart will be craving a touch. But logically, if they've been hurt by touch, there's a good chance they're going to reject it. And that's going to make it very difficult for this child to feel seen, heard, loved, and understood. Now, quality time. What's the opposite of quality time? Isolation. If you punish a child who speaks the love language of quality time by isolating them, that will cut them deeper than any other wound. Quality time for them is everything. And so if they're put into a sense of isolation, that is going to really impact how they see themselves and their ability to connect with others in the future. Now, your acts of service child, they love things being done for them. They love doing things for others. That's how they speak this love language. You'll see a lot of people that love to host dinner parties. They're acts of service people. And so taking the dinner party example, what's an easy way to hurt that person in regards to their acts of service as a love language. Criticize their food. Criticize the effort they've put in for you. Oh, this chicken's a little bit dry. Ugh. Acts of service person, they're going to feel a sense of, well, why bother? Now, receiving gifts, downplay the gifts they give you. That's an easy way to hurt a child. That speaks the love language of receiving gifts. A child has created something for you and they've spent hours on it. We've all had these moments where the child has put all of their love, all of their everything into this gift and they present it to you. Now, you've got two options when you receive that. Oh, wow. Tell me about it. You've got a positive reaction, which is going to upplay. Is that a word? Upplay the gift receiving that a child has given you. Or, ugh, what's that? You downplay that child's gift. And remember, the child that uses receiving gifts as a love language, they remember everything. They remember how they felt. They remember what they were wearing. They remember how you felt. They remember every single thing about the experience. So if you downplay their gifts, that's going to really hurt a child who uses receiving gifts as a love language. Now, where this whole world of love languages becomes really tricky is when your child speaks a different love language to you. This is where understanding your child really needs to come in. When you can focus on speaking their language, you unlock the ultimate tool for building a deep and meaningful connection. And yes, it might push you outside of your comfort zone. But as we all know, that's where the true magic happens. The magic of growth, the magic of trust, and the magic of true understanding. Now, I'm more of a words of affirmation person. All the tests I've done have spoken into this. But my daughter, my middle daughter, she is as physical touch as they come. And this process took about a week for me to realize. And it wasn't until I started really diving into love languages on my own for work I was doing for a book I was writing that all of a sudden it hit. So let me set the scene. I would come home from work. She would be in the lounge room. She'd hear the door, "Dad!" and would come charging. And you know that charge that a child does where they're not going to stop until they stop. And so she would charge and she would headbutt me in the leg. And she was the perfect size to get in the quad every single time. And it was immediate. And so this happened for a week. Every single time I'd come home, "Dad!" would run, headbutt. It's like, what are you doing? Go away, move away. Like, that's not how you greet people. And it would happen Monday. I'd come home. Tuesday, I'd come home. Wednesday, I'd come home. "Oh, would you go away? Stop doing this." Thursday would come home. Thursday night, I went into a bit of a deep dive about love languages and the ball dropped. Oh, she's a physical touch child. Let me try something. On Friday, she came home. When I came home, she came to the door, "Dad!" and charged. So what did I do? Bags immediately got dropped. Before she got to me, I grabbed her, picked her up, flipped her over, ran to the bedroom, slammed her on the bed, hit her on the head with pillows, bounced her around, rolled her around, and you could just see when she finally, the hurricane had stopped and she sat up. And that night, the connection that her and I had was beautiful. She felt so much love. She felt so much understanding. She felt seen. She felt heard. She felt lighter because finally I was speaking her language. But my initial reaction to her was, "Are you being annoying? Go away." And we don't do that. We don't greet people like that because I'm in my head thinking, okay, what happens if a grandparent comes over and she goes and charges them? Great. That's not going to be a fun time. Let's not do that. So I want to train her to not do it. Whereas instead of rejecting it, I had to lean into it and go, okay, You're a physical touch human. Let's get this happening. And so now when I come home, she will charge me, but it's not with the same ferocity. She will charge into a hug. And then if I can feel that that hug gets a little bit tighter, that's her way of telling me in the most gentle way possible, I need you to beat me over the head with a pillow, please. It's going to be fantastic. I need this. And so then we'll run into the bedroom, we'll play. And then she comes out of it going, I feel good. And that's the key. When you can speak your child's love language, you're not just showing them that you care. You're saying, I see you, I hear you, and I understand you. Thank you for listening. If you found value in today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who might benefit from these insights.